This is my first time seeing these larger craft wood pieces at Dollar Tree. I picked up 2 of them because I feel like they're the perfect size for this pallet shelf I want to build. However, people, they are really rough around the edges. I took my little sander and just knocked all the stuff off around the top and the edges. We want it nice and smooth because we're going to be decoupaging this beautiful napkin onto the top of both of these pieces. They're going to be our actual shelf pieces. So that's what we're going to see is the design of this beautiful napkin. Plus, I love how this napkin has just like a whole kind of different design going on throughout the whole thing. There's lots of use here. If you've never decoupaged a napkin before, a good tip is to always remember to remove the sneaky layers off the bottom. You're just going to want to use the top decorative layer on your decoupage. I like to just tear a corner. Most of the time it shows me those sneaky layers. It's quick and I just pull the whole piece completely apart. And this is not the only way to do this. There are several different ways. This is just what works best for me. I decided to cut the napkin in half so I had equal portions to use our Mod Podge to decoupage onto the pieces of wood. And real quick, I want to share with y'all something to help you maybe save some money. I go through these all the time. And if you go into the stores, sometimes they're pretty expensive. However, if you have a Ross local to you, I don't know if you know, but they have craft sections and you can get sets like this pretty inexpensively. I want to do the iron-on method to these boards, and people, one thing that grosses me out while I'm crafting is Mod Podge boogers.
Ew. Ew. What is come on. Hey. Ew. Get out. Oh. It won't come out.
I can't even stand it. I started gagging trying to edit that. That was all I could do. I'm sorry. The editing could have been better there, but that was all I had. I can't rewatch that section. You're going to want to take your Mod Podge without the boogers and make sure there is a nice, healthy layer all over the top of your boards, especially whenever you're going to do the iron-on method. You want to make sure that when you're all done putting your layer on, it's heavy and thick all over the piece. The worst part about this is it normally takes a couple hours for it to completely dry, and I like to allow mine to dry at room temperature. But while that's drying, it's always good to make the most of our time. So I grabbed the little wood pallets and my little spritzer bottle and gave them a couple little squirts, and then took some black chalk paint and applied a layer. You'll notice that I left one piece of the palette completely unpainted, and that's because we're gonna cut that sucker off using our miter shears. And people, honestly, cut it off with whatever works best for you. I just keep these right next to me, and I know that I can get up pretty close to the pallets. We only need the first 3 of each pallet, so we can put on the side of our shelf that we're creating. When I was done trimming them down, I took a little bit of that black paint and went over anything that needed some touch-ups. While they're drying, it is time to bring on in the iron so we can iron on our beautiful napkin to these pieces that are finally dry. Once you have your napkin in the exact spot that you want it, grab you some parchment paper so you can apply over top of the napkin while you're doing your iron on. This is going to protect the napkin and protect your iron all at the same time and allow you to get a nice smooth finish. And then just work from one side to the next. Before you go sanding anything off, check all your edges, making sure that that napkin is butterly melted onto the Mod Podge and the top of that wood. And people, just in case you forget to check a section or whatever, it's a good idea to get in the habit of when you're sanding off stuff like this to go straight down. So this way it just disconnects your piece. If you go back and forth, it's possible it can shred it. I'm taking some of the same black paint and trimming all around the edge where the napkin is not. When everything was completely dry, I grabbed my current favorite wood glue and my hot glue and started attaching everything. Now, how you attach it is completely up to you. I decided that I wanted to start by assembling the pallets together, just so this way when I put them on the sides of our shelving unit, that they were kind of already together with a slight hold. So I could reinforce with more wood glue and more hot glue as I assembled everything together at one time. If you want, and I showed you right here, you can add a little bit more wood glue and hot glue and put a tumbling block at the bottom just for a little bit of extra reinforcement. And feel free, people, I know I didn't paint the underside. Make sure you paint yours if you want to. For the sake of time, I did not. After I was able to get the two shelves in place on the pallets, I then took the other pallet that I put together, the other little set, and put all the glue in the sections I wanted to put it on at one time. So this way I could just put that on the other side at one time instead of trying to do piece by piece. Next time you're in Dollar Tree, head on over to their frames section and grab a couple. Just mix and match them. Frames are a great way to create cohesive collections, and we're going to be using a napkin to tie them all together. I went with 3 frames, 2 the same design, and 1 was a little bit larger, and it was a little bit on the half. Really? They just snapped right on off. It's okay anyway, we don't really need those, right? I took the glass pieces out of each one of these frames and put them off to the side because we are going to be putting them back in the frames in just a little bit. A cool hack if you don't have poster board and you want to skip painting and prepping for decoupage for something like this is to grab one of Dollar Tree's boxes. I usually keep these around in my stash. They're easy to just trace on, and they're also easy to just cut on out. So I took the size of the frames, measured them on up, and then trimmed them down to size so we can use them for the backing to put the napkins on. And if you want to paint the pieces in the frames and use that, I've done that too, and that works just fine. I didn't really care for the color of this frame, and it didn't really go so cohesively with the other 2 frames. So I grabbed some paint to paint it, and it turned out like doo-doo brown. I didn't really like the color of this paint either. I'm sorry. After scrounging around for a second, my little paint collection there, I was able to find a brown that, you know, served our project here a little bit better. Obviously, paint yours whatever color you want. Next, I took the pieces that I cut out and put in different sections on the napkins that we wanted to put in the frames. And another cool idea, if you wanted to use multiple napkins for your cohesive collection, is to take a napkin with similar colors or a similar theme. It doesn't have to be the same exact napkin. I removed the top decorative layer of the napkin so we could decoupage onto our boxes. Now, you could absolutely skip this part and just put your napkins in the frame and the glass and be all done. But I never skip out on an opportunity to decoupage, even just a little bit. So I grabbed my good old Mod Podge here and I grabbed a fan brush and put a very, very thin layer on top of our little cardboard boxes and place our napkin pieces on them. Not only is this another creative way to use those beautiful decorative napkins you see around in stores, it's also a great way to put old frames to use, new frames to use, and create something different in your decor. Projects, they're going to be 2 different plate DIYs, and again, you can pick these up from Dollar Tree. I'm going to start off by putting our beautiful napkin that I have here right onto the back of both of these. I'm going to use the same napkin for both plates, 2 different ideas, or different ideas on each plate. Make sure you get your sneaky layers off the back there, so we just have the top decorative layer, and then we're going to bring in our sponge. I like to use this to help me apply napkin decoupage to certain things for certain projects. It is a dry sponge. It is not wet. It helps to grab the extra Mod Podge that seeps through the porous napkins. This is the medium I'm using here, and I am going to do this section by section. Less is more whenever you're decoupaging a napkin onto something. I will say that the larger the surface you're trying to cover and the more you put on, since you're only doing a thin layer, you have a small window of time because it will start to dry almost immediately. So I just did the bottom of the plate first, and I used our little sponge to kind of press that down, and then I went around the outside of the plate. If you're a rebel and you want to do the whole thing and press it down, you go right ahead. I didn't want to mess that up because these are going to go in my vendor space. And as you can see here, even though I'm taking the sponge and rubbing it over the napkin, I'm doing it very gingerly. I'm not being tough with the sponge and applying a lot of pressure because the napkins are thin, and the Mod Podge, since it's on glass, it's not like it's on wood and seeping into anything. It's literally riding on the top, so it's super easy to tear your napkin when you're doing this. I decoupaged the other plate off camera so this way you didn't have to watch me do the same thing twice. Now the decorating aspect I am doing separately because they're 2 entirely different ideas. But as you can see here, I left a little bit of the napkin around the edges, and I'm trying to show you here. I get asked a lot about whether or not to paint or whether or not to leave things when I'm doing glass. So to have a little fun, I'm going to paint one with the paint, and I'm going to leave one translucent. See if you guys can tell which one is which project I'm doing with which. And at the end, I'm going to tell you anyway. But make sure you do let that Mod Podge dry before you apply your paint so you don't have any ripping of your napkin. Adding the paint is going to make the design on the napkin pop out more, and not adding the paint is going to make it more translucent. Both are beautiful. For this one, we're going to use this stencil that I picked up from Walmart, and I'm taping the entire design down as much as I possibly can. Since the plate is bent, there were some gaps in between the stencil and the plate. I tried to eliminate that for bleed through by taking some of our Mod Podge and doing a layer over that. A lot of times this will help stop bleed through, and unfortunately, because there were some spaces in between around the edges, there was still a little bit of bleed through. I let the Mod Podge completely dry, and here it is, me just kind of showing you how it seals around the gaps on our plate. However, the Mod Podge did seep underneath of our little stencil, so that kind of bled into where the paint met. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll show you how to fix it. Just letting you know what's going on here. I just tap some white chalk paint on the top of here, and once that dried, I peeled this up. So if this ever happens to you, I love glass art and I paint a ton of glass. I don't always have videos on it, but I'm going to show you how to fix it. You just take a dotting tool And chalk paint is so easy to manipulate, especially when it's on glass. So you just take the dotting tool right up around the edges where you have that chalk paint, and you just glide the dotting tool right along, and it will get rid of all the bumps, all the messed up areas, and you can make it as smooth as you want. You can even make a completely different design if you want. So I did that around the entire piece, just cleaning up everything. And when I was happy with that, I then took a really, really tiny paintbrush and I went back in with more chalk paint, touching up any cracking or any spots that I felt needed to be, just rubbed and buffed on out to be beautiful. To bring out our flower a little bit more, I'm taking some of this metallic paint and just going around some edges to add in some highlights. I did sand the rest of the napkin off around the edge and took some of that glossy Mod Podge and sealed over the piece. It's just stunning. For this plate, we're going to paint the center white, and you're going to need to do several layers of this, and Godspeed trying to make sure that circle is perfect. That was a struggle. Mine is still a little wonky, it's questionable, but I got the look I was going for. I'm then taking some of Dollar Tree's transfers and a Primo transfer that I have. It's like a little poem type piece, little saying, and we're going to just rub these right on this paint. And it's really important that you allow that paint to dry, because if not, this is not going to transfer on here very well. And chalk paint will give you a better result than acrylic paint. You can use acrylic paint, but it takes like weeks for that to actually cure onto glass. And if you're trying to get a project done within 48 hours, the chalk paint's going to be the way to go. Unless you want to seal over the acrylic paint and then wait for that to dry, but you're still going to have to wait a day or two. Chalk paint you're able to do pretty much the same day when you're doing glass. Make sure you apply a sealer on this, and that's going to be it for this one. Real quick, pause the video and go down in the comments and let me know which one you think has the paint on the back and which one is translucent. All right, people, moment of truth. The one with the stencil is translucent. Did you guess right? To start off this project, we're going to need to glue 3 tumbling blocks together just like this. And we're going to need 4 of these and 1 of these long pallets. And that's it. That's all we're going to need to accomplish this little look. This part is important though if you're trying to get as square as you can get. You do not want like 2 in the middle, 2 on the ends. You're gonna kind of like overlap. So you'll have 1 overlapping the bottom on the other for all of these to where it's kind of like a square, So be mindful as you're using your hot glue and your wood glue. So this way it is pressing in those seams, like where they meet, in just the right places. And on the very last one, I had to kind of do like at the same time, so this way when I pressed it, I didn't have to try and peel it back apart on the last one, like in the little last section. I hope that makes sense. If not, I'm trying to show you in the video. See how it's 2 connecting points here? So there's the one and then there's the other. I didn't want to have to peel the other one up if I only did one side first. I hope that makes sense. You're gonna let this dry, and once it's dry, we're gonna spray paint these. Now, I've said this before that I like to spray paint everything at the same time, and I didn't show you all at one time in the video, and the only reason is because I used different colors and couldn't put them all in the same box, or I'd get them all sprayed on top of each other. I had to do these like one at a time. So this is why it's sectioned off today, but I still gotta show you some spray paint. I gotta show my spray paint people some love. Look how pretty it is. Oh, I just love how this turned out. And this is all we're going to do. We're going to put that palette on the center of that square like that. And we're going to decoupage some more. Because I got lucky at the Christmas tree shop and found all these amazing napkins. Amazing. I'm so in love with them. But funny enough, this one only had 1 layer. I mean, what are the odds? How lucky am I in one video to show y'all 2 layers and 1 layer? It was like Christmas for the filming industry. No, I'm just kidding. Anyhow, the words were not going to lay perfectly on the little palette, pieces. So I decided to carefully cut them out. If you're going to do a decoupage like this, where you want the words to show, don't get too worried if your napkin overhangs or doesn't overhang. If you throw some Mod Podge like I'm doing on here, like lather it on up, once it's all dry, you just take yourself a sandpaper and that stuff's gonna come right off. Feel free to skip this part entirely if you're happy with it. I felt like it was a little plain and wanted to add some twine around the edges. And I didn't get wild with it and layer the whole thing. I just, did 3 wraps on each side of the corner just to give it a little something. And I just glued it down on the back. And then I'm only using hot glue for this. You can use E6000 or your Gorilla Glue gel, whatever makes you fuzzy inside. And that was it for this one, people. If you're looking for more napkin inspiration, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. And until next time, bye!